Short and simple.
No, I think I would. That's okay. I can take. Come on. No,
It's
it's
gonna be like Christmas
no
story.
big
over
deal.
here real quick.
Sweet.
Deal with it. It was right in
I just
front
got
of
here
me.
first.
Yeah.
That's right. I'll give it back when I'm done.
Because you give it away. So
Surround-
I thought if I
surround-
just kind of put it off to the side, maybe it won't be in.
Sneak it in closer.
Lean away. They teach that in
Yeah.
So they can't capture everything. And
That's not what I said.
From you. One with the chicken scratch on it, yeah. And on Greg's, it's gray.
Oh, this is Greg's here.
oh,
The manager.
yeah, a little more headliner looking.
All right, 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. And we will begin as we do with our land acknowledgement statement. The Chinookan peoples, known as the Clackamas and Cascades, are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nechakli was located near today's Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included a seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the cedar and huckleberry gathering areas of the High Cascades. Introduced disease from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. And we are honored to be guests upon these lands. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Liberty.
Now we'll open the floor for citizen comment on non-agenda items.
And there are no citizen comments this evening, written, verbally, or otherwise.
All right. Thank you, Greg. We'll close the floor then. And we'll have a presentation from Senator Chris Gorsuch. His chief of staff is on the Zoom. Still muted. Are you there, Jason?
The little down arrow. Yeah.
I guess it is only 6:02 and we have him on the agenda for 6.
We had a lot of anticipation for citizen comment.
Shorten that up a little looking forward.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we
Well, not especially. I don't see everybody in the audience. Are you Waste Management or Urban Water Quality Flood Safety District?
Evan Mitchell with
Okay. I think we'll just have you start if you're willing, and we'll let you finish, and then we'll move the senator.
Greg is
Oh, it looks like he'll be there in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Wait.
Sure. We've we're gonna have to start bringing sock puppets or marionettes. This has been a little habit for us lately to have dead time in meetings.
I'm organizing the event storage room. I know where the polar bear head is. And I can-
You guys want, I can probably wrap up my finance director's report.
Jump out there.
He's like, I'm ready.
Right. Draw your attention to what would normally be close to the end of the agenda.
So,
Director's report.
Mayor, councilors, included in your packet was the finance director's report for the month ending in May. As you can see in all the revenues, we're actually at or exceeding our targeted revenue other than property tax, which was coming in less than anticipated due to lower than expected revenues for urban renewal. Bank balance continues to be high. Interest rates have been increasing quite rapidly over the last month and a half. They're 1.25% on the local government investment pool through the state treasury. Other than that, we are working on wrapping up month end. John's shoveling money out the door as quickly as he can before June 30th, as long as the services and goods are delivered on or before that date. And that's all the highlights that I had from the finance director's report. Questions or comments?
Just because I'm in kind of the same position right now of shoveling money out the door and having to
Yes.
land stuff before the end of a fiscal year. What are the, what do we have to do if it doesn't get here by 6:30?
If it doesn't get here by 6:30, all that does is it means that we consume budget and appropriation in the next fiscal year, so 22-23 rather than 21-22. And some of the projects, we actually reviewed that in management team today. We talked about some that might go over, but they're relatively small. Public Works, ops building refurbishments might end up going into the second week of July. But again, most of the work's already been completed. So it would just kind of cut into our operating contingency and flexibility for next year if they're not received by that date. And we didn't plan for them going over.
And I hear you saying there's nothing big that's gonna go over, just, yeah.
As of 2 days left.
Questions at all for Seth? Thank you, Seth. Senator Gorsuch, welcome. We had our finance manager filling in for you for a minute. But you can come right up if you're ready.
Good afternoon or evening, whichever you might prefer. Are we ready? Are we ready to go? Okay. So I'm Chris Gorsuch. I am your senator from 25, so East Multnomah County. I have the pleasure of serving Fairview, Wood Village, Troutdale, almost all of Gresham. And while we used to have a little more Portland, we have very little of Portland. So especially as redistricting comes online this next. Prior to being in the Senate, so I'm in the second of my 4 years. I was in House District 49 and was actually your House representative for 4 terms. In the distance past, I spent a term on the Troutdale City Council. And I've been a teacher at Mount Hood Community College since I also teach part-time at Portland State from about the same time period. That's when you're an adjunct, it's always if they have money. So it's not as frequent as my full-time job at Mount. And in the past, I worked in retail for about 10 years, 2 different times for Fred Meyer, and also spent about 8 Portland police officer back during the dinosaurs. I think I saw Jurassic Park, the most recent, and I'm pretty sure I saw one of our police cars. So it was a while ago. So it is very good to see you all and to see you in person. And probably as you have Brady Bunch squares for quite a long time. Especially when you have to, we use Teams, and Teams is not always. So I've had some fun times with that. Currently, I am the co-chair of the Public Safety Subcommittee, so of Ways and Means, and with my House co-chair, we get to deal with the various budgets for public safety. That includes corrections, really a lot of stuff related to the funding, especially for the state police. And then I am also on the Senate Education Committee. That kind of ties in nicely with my work as a teacher. I'm on Full Ways and Means, which not only do I work on the subset of criminal justice, I'm also on the big committee, which vets all of the various funding requests that come to us and the various budgets that we put out. And if you ever watched one of those, know that there's like, I don't know, there's like 50 million representatives and senators on that. It's an amazingly huge. So, I work on that too. Last year, we created, myself and Representative Nathanson, we created the Rail Caucus, and we have about 18 or 19 legislators out of Republicans and Democrats and House and Senate to work on trying to build up our rail infrastructure, both for freight and passenger. There's potentially some. I'm also on joint transportation, and probably are all aware of a little project down the river. I was there in 13 when we didn't get it through the first time. By the way, I'm not taking responsibility for that, but yes, Mr. Mayor, you and I were both, I believe we were both around at that time.
I appreciated your courage for voting against basically everything in the grand bargain, which could have had a much more descriptive name you can't say in front of children.
Well, we had some challenges with some issues around that, and so once in a while, I feel strongly that it doesn't represent your district and what you feel the orders of yours that I'd like them to go, oh, independent thinker, very nice, but you know how that can go. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm on the City County Caucus, which you all involved in too. Association of Oregon Counties and League of Oregon Cities. It's a joint venture. In fact, I think have let's see, and then I'm on the Wildlife Caucus as well, and not surprised. Lots of fun things going on. Oh, and I'm also on the legislative that oversees. I am one of the folks on the the school, talking a lot recently about things like, some of the very terrible shootings that occurred, and also talking about things. That we keep seeing a few years ago, see at Reynolds High School down to zero, hopefully. That's a really important community from my perspective. Then I'm also on with Senator Hansel. Others, we're part of the the Oregon site for Hanford. Long history going weapons and nuclear power. Really, the great thing is I teach geography and criminal justice. So a lot of the things that I'm currently working on, I actually and of course, after all is said and done, I am always interested in what helps cities like your own, not just my district, but especially in my district. Anytime there is something where you go, that bill about, and I don't think or you go, I love that bill. Salem. Please do feel free. get a lot of information too. But we've had a few things that have come up, and I've talked to Troutdale, Fairview. I know that not always glad tidings legislature is sending to you. So I am very interested in bringing your voice and discussion, because as you know, whether it's Congress or whether it's the legislature, sometimes you touch with the on the ground. So anyway, I had, do you want to know about my 2 priority bills from last?
Please.
Okay. First one was brought to us by a constituent. He was or is a floating home owner. And what he found was that there was a really weird provision about taxes for, and so they basically said that they had to talk about their tax level, send in a form back to the county assessor mid-year, even though we all normally do that sort of tax in November, right? And everybody has to report their, get it in November, and we report it in. Well, floating homeowners, for some reason, we're being told you have to verify that mid-year. But there's a couple of catches. There were a couple of catches to that. Number one is a lot of folks that live out on the river live and on the notice. Secondarily, they're not allowed to forward Southern. And so when they didn't report it, they could get into trouble and be fined 50% of their tax burden. Because they didn't fill out this little piece of paper and send it back to the county. Yeah. The 50% penalty for late. That didn't matter if you still paid your taxes on. Send that paper back. It was an old holdover. Apparently we used to do this with mobile homes, trailer parks, and we got rid of that a long time ago. But for some reason, we never pulled floating homes out of it. So we got a bill drafted, and we were successful in getting that through. In fact, it was pretty much both chambers, I believe it was pretty much a large majority support. So it was a good bipartisan bill for sure. The second one, probably the struggles that my college has had road here at Mount Hood. Mount Hood, as I understand it, we have not passed bond measure that we could use since I graduated from high school. I know, and you're going, oh, what, a couple of years ago? I know, I'm watching 1970. Great year, but still far too far back to be a. Now, we did pass one, I think it was President Silverman was, so maybe 10, 12 years ago, except at that time, I think this has been done away with now, but you had to have a majority of the voters voting for it. So we had 50, we got to the 50% mark, which you had to have, but you also had to have majority. So it passed, and a bunch of people were like, oh, yay. And some of us were like, nah, it didn't really. So it did fail. And that's the last time we got close. So there are several colleges that struggle with funding. Another one is what we find is when the state has money at the end of the long session, we will have some funds that we designate for the various community colleges. They're based on Q11 bonds. Q11 bonds require a match. You have a college like Mount Hood, which struggles. The state has said, Mount Hood, we have $10 million for you. Actually, you don't. So I had a bill and it actually looked like it might move forward. I was going to refer it to the voters. It asked people help us restructure that so that the adjustments could be made. Then we got to thinking that that might be a very, very difficult lift, mainly because money and colleges in question don't have a lot of money. And so it probably would have been hard had we got it onto the ballot. So we've been working in a work group and we believe, and I hope within the next couple of weeks, we're going to see something from the community college. We believe that there is a way to structure it so that colleges that can't match can apply for certain general fund to help meet the match, but they will also have to be doing some of the match locally. So it's not just a handout. Still working on how the structure would work, but the great thing in that discussion, again, it's bipartisan. It looks like we are going to have a really good bill long session. So I'm hoping that that passes so that we can not only Mount Hood, but Treasure Valley and some of these other that really need the assistance. Yeah, a friend of mine was saying, because they're affiliated with PCC. Yeah, well, why PCC? And I went to PCC. I love PCC, but you know, they have a much better time than we do. And they don't have, look at East Milton. It's very understandable why it's hard for us to really hopeful that we can do something. Oh, and I don't know if you heard, but we passed a bill in the where community colleges, they have a specialty. They can now offer, they have to get permission from the Higher Education Coordinating Commission and all of this, but if they convince the heck that it's a good thing, they can offer 4-year. And we have one. Anybody hear about this? Cybersecurity. And everything I've heard about that program, that it's really, so that's super exciting. And maybe that will draw some more attention to the college. But I was speaking recently with, I think it was, I want to say Intel. I see Jason. Jason, can you see me? I guess I'm just seeing his picture. I think it was.
That would be Microsoft.
Microsoft, that's right. So we were talking about Microsoft to one of the Microsoft people, and they were saying that they are absolutely desperate to get more people out of programs like that. It's a huge demand right now. And we know that, you know, computers have become more and more and more important. And so having these very quickly good is really, we were encouraging them to look at the Mount Hood. So that's kind of the two, you know, during the short session, we only got two So one we held back on and now we're working to. And then the other one was the float. Anytime that we can help problem that this was there, that really is, not something that impacts everybody, but it's certainly area and the nice thing is it helped floating homes folks all around the state. And I will now stop talking.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, we'll see if we have any questions for you. Do you have any questions or comments at all? Council President Nelson?
Questions at this?
Council Minor?
Not really a question, but just an affirmative on the work with Mount Hood Community College and working a bill through that's a bipartisan
Oh,
and can get some money out there. So there can be some maintenance and there can be some improvements in the equipment that the students are using that is outdated. So really commend you for pushing on that and I'm hopeful that you can get it passed within the, so anyway.
yeah,
just-
I'm pretty hopeful of that too, but it is so important. And then, up something else that's very important. Our community colleges,
Yeah, it's,
so many deferred maintenance.
it is, and we know that Portland community has more money, but there isn't any college that has extra money.
Right.
So it is really important, and I would just emphasize a K-14 system.
Exactly.
So push, that's how I see it. The other thing I had was just the gun safety.
Yeah.
And again, we all know we're getting more and more dependent, it appears, that states have to look out for themselves. So well, I tell you, let's not be too shy about what we're trying to put together.
The other thing that I when we were doing the Student Success Act, which was only many of us argued that. Unfortunately, our leadership didn't see it. But we are still trying to get more funding directed towards community. Universities have a lot of nice big donors and they have their own boards now. They can easily match. 12 was helped, but community colleges are still kind
There they are. Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Councilor Rios Campos?
No questions, just thank you.
Councilor Mann?
I have some comments, but they're not specifically related to the bills that you
of, that's
mentioned.
fine.
I woke up on the 24th with less constitutional rights than I did on the 23rd, the overturn of Roe versus Wade. I have obviously concerns about that, especially as it relates to our right to privacy and the. I'm wondering if you can please comment on that and mention like keeping gun violence in schools around 0. Yeah, your thoughts on maybe gun laws and preventing someone from getting mad, buying an AR-15 and.
Yeah, I can, let's talk first about Roe. Many of my colleagues. One thing I can tell you is that Oregon has that is not likely. But it is not as permanent of a fix as what we have. It's something as you know, you probably that our West Coast state it was especially surprising when everybody had stated that decided, and so state level to
One of my concerns is that depending on my geographical location within the area, I have different rights than
know,
many of
yes.
the men, all of the men on this.
Right.
So I understand that we also thought that Roe would never be overturned, you know.
Exactly,
So
right.
I understand that our state and our coasts, our states can decide that, but it doesn't make sense, especially for women across the country, especially women of color, disproportionately affected.
And you know what's interesting about that when you look at the polling nationally, so it makes you wonder politically why the Supreme Court. So I think there are a lot of people, I certainly feel that way. And by the way, I'm not thinking that this is, it's about, you know, but believe that we should act disturbing to think that we can. What I think is more disturbing is that now there's talk of taking somebody on the Supreme Court visit gay marriage. Or maybe we should revisit, what was the other?
Contraception.
Contraception.
And also maybe we should revisit Brown versus Board of Education. And
Yeah, Senator Cornyn from Texas
yeah, it's just like,
brought up Brown and Plessy versus Ferguson.
yeah. And that's, you know, traditionally, and this comes from my criminal justice class, traditionally, court hasn't gone out publicly said things like that. They just make their decision. It's a weird place that we're in now when we have on the court saying that, and let's do. So I prefer unless you have a good reason to change, staying with the precedent. So it's a tough one. Now to go to the other one, we did get some, in fact, let me see here, did get in 23 some gun legislation passed. I'm sorry I was late, by the way. We just had to switch to a new internet and my printer didn't. So I'm just like, I have to go. I've got to be in, and it's
You were actually on time. We were just early in the end.
really, oh, wow. Well, so like I said, so I was on time and, oh, wait. I hope. If not, I can get the information. Of course. Oh, I hate it when this happens.
Well, let me just say, I need to know, in the state of Oregon, can you buy an AR-15 at age 18?
I believe that you can.
Well, there's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Buying an AR-15 at 18 years old. So as you're starting to put together language, there's a good place to start from my opinion.
And the one thing I'm wondering about, and this I think came out this week, or made other decision. I think they were limiting what states could limit.
They were going to increase that was the New York one about open carry.
Open
Right.
carry.
That was the Supreme Court, but the Senate did, and the House and Senate did pass a bill and send it to the president
Right.
for signing that would improve the background check on 18-year-olds buying long guns. Also do some things that Oregon had already done, like close the boyfriend loophole.
Yeah. I think that's called the Charleston loop.
And then we were going to be reaching out to you on this anyway. I just had a meeting with a representative from Giffords Gun Safety. And they were telling me that actually Oregon's the 9th ranked state in terms of gun responsibility laws that have already been passed by the legislature, and fast becoming a model that people can look at, that other states could look at. And reason I reached out to them is we're considering the potential of putting together a forum, particularly on gun safety, because we're putting a lot of pressure on the sheriff's department right now to get guns off the streets. And actually, in the time that Under Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell has been the chief of law enforcement or the undersheriff, they've taken more guns off the street than at any other point in time. So they're doing a good job. But what we're not talking about enough probably is keeping guns from getting to the street in the first place.
Right.
So, Oregon's one of the few states where you have to report a weapon if it's stolen. I'd like to bring that up, and we'd like to talk about safe storage. And so we're probably going to
absolutely.
be reaching out to both you and Representative Hudson to see if you'd.
The
part
one
of
thing
that
that's
forum.
surprising, by the way, is that after years not being able to move in, it wasn't, you always want more. But after a huge loss gone on forever and ever, to them finally go, wait a minute. Fortunately, look at how. And by the way, I am a gun owner, not opposed to guns. I'm opposed to us safe with them, selling them to people. And so I am not. But I do worry about things that are designed to kill people, and of course.
Yeah, it's
On the other
California,
hand, I
can't
also know
legally
that there
have
are
to.
some collectors out there, and there's always. I had a friend of mine, he didn't have a library, he had amazing amounts of stuff. So I think we can do it in a way that we're accommodating, but what I find disturbing is that I really go back and look at the data, but it certainly seems like in the years, people have gotten much more comfortable with a way that I don't, now it was the 1980s. As a police officer, we sometimes, but not now, it seems much more intense. I don't know if you heard about this. I was I think 126 and was securing, and a guy that was not supposed to be trespassing, he told him to leave, and the guy jumped him, grabbed his gun, shot him in the chest. But we live in a county where are telling me that they are buying vests themselves. Salted numerous times. That's when we need to really what's going on and how pretty shocking. And you know what a lot of it is? No.
Jason mentioned in the Zoom chat that he put in a link to a list of the Oregon gun bills that you've worked on. Or that you voted in favor of, so we'll be able to collect that after the meeting.
Great. And if we have anything else, or if you want to know more information, Jason wizard, he's a magician about him. So, but don't tell him I said that.
And I just wanted to say one more thing, because I may be reaching out to you on a totally different matter,
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
small cities grants.
Oh,
So there's been some changes, and I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but we're going to see if we can handle this with ODOT ourselves. But I may, or Greg or John may be reaching out to you if we need a little help.
Well, we'd
Thank
be
you.
happy to help you.
Thanks.
I would tell you that sometimes ODOT,
Sure. Well, we'll let you know if we'll let you know if we need a heavy hitter in there.
I will
Thanks.
tell you, and I don't know how interested you are, but we are get cities along the old Lanier route. Supporting modelization of that. Chicago and the small cities throughout George and then out through Oregon. So we have some information on that. Rail Caucus and Washington Rail Caucus. ODOT again. Anytime cities can weigh in and say, hey, what are you doing about it? It will help us, especially at a time when we know federal money is rail improvements and so.
I'll let you off the hook for mine in the interest of time. Just say I'm glad that Rail Caucus is bicameral and bipartisan, and hopefully it'll look at public transportation, not just commercial and will someday.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right.
And you know, one of the things, in talking to the folks at Genovese in Wyoming, know them as Portland and West. They run, sadly, a train to no West train on. They, at least high up leadership that we spoke to last week, they are not adverse to trying to add more commuter rail on their system. In conjunction with them, they have the lines that go from Portland out to St. Helens. That's a pretty intense order for traffic, but they also have a line that goes through Southeast Portland and over to Lake Oswego and on to West currently runs. And I've been also trying to talk to Union Pacific Northern about what we can do not to compete with light rail, but to be a complement to it. Imagine if we had a train that ran from Troutdale, somewhere in here, and took you downtown. Signaling was done correctly. You can do the same thing right now on the Amtrak Cascades from Oregon City to Portland, if the signaling is right. So if we could inspire more of that, these are really great ways to help move our citizens in, out, way that, even. So, yeah, you don't have time, but I could tell you all sorts of grand ideas that I have about. But you know, the big thing, and it comes up with the bridge, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that that bridge is so important for us, but it's important for agricultural folks in Eastern Oregon, industrial folks down the valley. I mean, those products is so important. That's where that bridge.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Senator.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, you get a teacher and a politician and then we start talking and it's like, yeah, where's my hook? It's been very nice talking with all of you and reach out that I can help you with. I talked to Mayor Pitt, but I've talked to Councilor Rios before, and I look forward to talking to any and all. Thanks for having me.
Next up is our presentation then on the Urban Floodwater Safety Quality District.
Okay, so as Greg's pulling up the presentation, I'll introduce Evan Mitchell. She's the Senior Public Affairs and Communications Manager for MCDD. So as you know, we have a seat on the initial board for the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. You as a council chose to have a staff member. So you chose the Public Works Director. So I'm on the initial board. And in my Public Works Director's reports, been trying to provide you with agendas of kind of what's been going on at the monthly meetings. But I had talked with Evan and she is going around the region, talking to other municipals that are on the initial board, talking with their councils and commissions. And so she's here tonight to have a brief presentation.
Hi, Mayor Hardin and City Council members. Thank you for having me. Hi, Jeff. Nice to see you. We thank you very much for your participation in the Urban Water Quality District. And we're touching base with folks because we're coming up on some big decisions in the next probably 6 to 9 months that we want to prepare for folks for. But just to back up a little bit, because I know that some of you have been, involved in various discussions about this issue for several years, and for other folks, it's relatively new. Just want to kind of zoom back out and do a quick overview, because most people don't know that we have levees in Portland. People hear levees and they think about New Orleans and other places that have more common, we hear about big flood events. We haven't had a huge major flood in Portland in 20 years, but we were just in the middle of a high water event last week. And these levees that are all along the Columbia River and Columbia Slough helped hold back water. We also have a series of 12 pump stations in this area, including a pump station that helps receive water downhill from here. So basically the water in Wood Village runs downhill into the managed floodplain, and we pump the water out into the Columbia River. So there is a connection with the citizens of Wood Village. There's this levee system provides a ton of benefits for the region. One of the biggest impacts is it protects drinking water for 1 million people. The Columbia South Shore water well field that the city of Portland runs is in the managed floodplain and protected by the system. Tons of jobs. You all know the benefits of this area better than I do, so you understand that the impacts if something were to happen to this levee system. We also have a long history of flood risk. We've been incredibly fortunate in the last 20 years, but there is, long history. 1948, the Vanport flood decimated, community, left 18,000 people without homes overnight. And that infrastructure actually still exists today. That railroad embankment that breached, that led to that flood, is the exact same railroad embankment that still protects us today. So there's not as many residents in that area, but directly on the other side of I-5, there's a low-income community just directly on the other side. So there's still a significant amount of risk. And as I mentioned, our last big flood was 1996, but we're having more high water events. We just had one last week. We've had several over the last 5 years, and we're starting to see these sort of signs of weakness in our infrastructure system. These pictures represent some of that, which you start to see through boils where water is sort of coming up on the landward side of the levees, and showing us where there's structural issues. We also are seeing, we call it sloughing, but it's essentially like the dirt of the levees starting to fall off into the river as the river rises and the levees are engaged in holding back water. So these are all signs that, this 100-year-old infrastructure that we've been relying on needs some pretty significant improvements. We are aware right now, these green lines represent of the capital improvements that we know we need to make, and they amount to about 200 million in improvements that are sort of in a really urgent category. There's other ones that we also need to make, but these are the ones that will help us reach federal safety standards that have been set in the last decade. So we've been working for years to try to address this. You all have been at the table for the last 4 or 5 of them. We really appreciate that. We've sort of gone about tackling this issue in a couple different ways. One is to work with the federal government to seek federal assistance for levee improvements. We have an Army Corps of Engineers project. We're on course to get authorization and probably around 100 million in federal improvements for the system. It's not guaranteed, but we feel like we're on the right track to get those improvements made. We also worked with folks all around the region to pass Senate Bill 431, which created the new Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District, which you all have a representative on the board of. And this new district is really focused on kind of modernizing the way that we manage this infrastructure and putting a more sustainable revenue structure in place. And that's really why I'm here today, is to talk about that revenue structure. We have, this timeline has way too many words on it. So I think I'll just highlight the few pieces that I want you all to sort of take away. We are working towards putting a new revenue structure in place for this new district. We currently operate on assessment, so it shows up on people's property tax bills. It's only the property owners in the managed floodplain, so that area that's surrounded by levees, that currently pay. One of the things that this new district is considering is benefits and who else should pay for the services that this district provides, the benefits that it brings to the region. And so we're currently looking at several different revenue structures. What is becoming most clear in that analysis is that there's some combination of service fees that probably make the most sense, that are legally viable, and we hope politically viable. And so over the next 4 months, we'll be working to finalize some modeling so that we can actually look at the impacts of various revenue structures and costs. So how much do we actually charge for these various services, and how that will impact different residents. So hopefully by October-ish of this year, we'll be able to come back and actually say, here would be the impacts of this revenue structure on your residents in Wood Village. And we could look at, an apartment dweller, a large commercial lot, a large industrial lot. We'd have a few customer types that we'll be able to look at. Once we have that information, we're really hoping that within the next few months after that, we can make a decision about a revenue structure, because implementing that revenue structure is going to take a fair amount of time, partly because we're a special district and we don't have any means of billing and collecting a new revenue structure. So we're going to have to figure that part out. We think that may involve a series of intergovernmental agreements, which is one of the things that we came to talk to Greg and John about, because we have no method of collecting any income in our current we currently send our list out to Multnomah County. They put it on the property tax bill, they collect it. So that's going to be one of the big issues that we have to work through is who and how do we collect this new revenue? So there's that issue. There's how much gets charged to the various different geographies based on benefit. And then finally, the third thing, we'll be working on a ballot measure to put on the May 2024 ballot to raise some of that capital funding that we need. And so of all the different issues that we're dealing with, that third one feels the most concrete and tangible. There's kind of a clear process. People know how to put ballot measures together. And so that one we're saving for a little bit further into this process after we've kind of addressed the big question about what our ongoing operating revenue structure looks like. So we're really coming out to talk to folks and just want to make sure that you understand that this is coming and, you know, we want to hear questions. We want to make sure that folks are part of the discussion. John has been doing a wonderful job raising questions, raising the needs of the residents here. But this is a decision that we're going to want everyone to be involved in because it's a big one. You know, this is not an issue that gets a lot of attention, but it's one that we won't want to make without having the representatives of the constituents here weigh in on. So I think with that, I'll stop and see if there are questions or discussion. And again, you're happy to talk anytime if you want to talk offline.
Council President Nissen.
The only question that came to my mind, Evan, is you said that the runoff from Wood Village made its way into a managed floodplain and then was pumped out. What happens if it's not pumped out?
So it depends on the time of year, but you know, let me go back to the map so the way the system works is these levees were built and basically blocked in the entire area. So before the levees were there, water would run downhill from the kind of Alameda Ridge down into the managed floodplain, into the slough and out into the river. Now there's these barriers that keep it from happening. So if we didn't pump water, at least during the rainy season, the slough would fill up, it would back up, and we'd have internal flooding in the system. So that whole area kind of surrounded in red and pink would flood at various rates. So the pumping is crucial, and without removing levees, which at this point would be extremely difficult given the number of properties there, we don't really have a choice but to pump.
Okay. My only question at this point.
No questions here. Thank you.
Councilor Rios Campos.
I guess some of the question will probably be answered after you guys do the study and get back to us about information cards on usage from our constituents and that entitled for them. So I think probably have more questions.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't mention was scale. I know that's really important. You know, we work with a lot of different cities and the county and port, and then the dollar figures that we're talking about are relatively small. We're thinking that the total operating budget is somewhere around $30 million annually. And at least from preliminary research that we've done, that would look like somewhere around $1 a month for what we were calling the average homeowner. When we did that study, that average homeowner was a real market value of about $350,000. That's obviously changed a lot for a lot of people over the last couple of years. So we'll have more updated numbers, but that kind of gives you a general sense of what we're looking at. It's probably somewhere around a couple of dollars a month.
Councilor Mann. Evan, I think that it's any sort of fee is a tough sell for some pumps, because we're not protected by the levy. A lot of the businesses that exist in the areas that are protected by the levy might have exist someplace else, might actually be here in our city and we'd be benefiting them instead of located on land that wouldn't have been available had the levees not been built in the first place. So I think that current fee structure of putting it on the tax bill and essentially, paying it one time a year versus having any sort of a monthly fee, regardless of the size of it, is where the Wood Village citizens would like to stay until you come out with the bond measure. And then, give them the choice of whether or not they want to be assessed. And I'm curious also about the estimated $30 million operating budget. How many employees would that be, and what's the anticipated, scope of work that, for those employees over a year's time?
Yeah, so we're still doing, I'm giving you all kind of an early picture of what I think is we're starting to see. 30 million may not be the total number, but the scope of work is really based on what's in the statute that was passed by the state legislature. So primarily, number one function is flood safety, maintaining those levees and the pump stations. The legislature also asked us to modernize the way that we do it, to think about the environment and impacts on the environment, to think about equity and social justice, and to apply an equity lens to the work that we do. They also asked us to think about climate change and preparing for the impacts of higher river levels in the future, more rain on snow events, more precipitation falling on the region. So those are all part of the scope. Number of staff, we'll have to get back to you on that one. I just don't have that information available yet. Currently, we have a staff of about 35 people that serve this whole area. And it's hard to say right now whether or not how much that will change, because one of the things that will change pretty dramatically is going from administering 4 drainage districts to 1. So we currently keep 7 sets of books, 7 budgets, 6 boards that we administer. And so that is just like a huge administrative lift that will be relieved. So I think what we're going to ultimately see is that there'll be some administrative burden that's relieved, but then some operating capacity needs as we think about doing things in a more environmentally friendly way, and maybe some capital investments that are needed that we'll work through with the bond measure.
Just out of curiosity, currently all of the operating budget for the 4 districts is paid by just the people that are within the districts.
Yep. So currently, folks in Wood Village do not pay anything, and that was part of the consideration with the legislature. And part of the reason you all requested to be on the board was there was this discussion about the watershed area that flows down into the managed floodplain and gets pumped out. There has been no decision yet about whether or not that area gets charged for anything. And that's really why we're here, is to make sure that you're aware that that's coming. And that's a conversation that we all want you to participate in, is whether or not that, because there's lots of different ways that we could structure this. One being that we do charge something to the Wood Village residents for water, the influent water that's pumped. City of Fairview is in a very similar position. Maywood Park is in somewhat of a similar position, although their water is dealt with a little bit differently. So, and then parts of Troutdale. So definitely a conversation to be having at a regional level about, is it worth it to you all to pay for that, for the water that we pump out of the system? And if not, how do we deal with that as a region?
That's the good question. I mean, you mentioned that some of the fee could be based on benefit. And I think I would want, sort of an honest assessment of the cost of pumping versus just, charging people based on the value of their home. Because I get the feeling that pumpings would be less of a fee.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a number of different benefits. There's the direct benefits like the cost of pumping, but we're also looking at spreading the cost to the entirety of the new district, which is all of Multnomah County in the urban growth boundary, which would reduce the amount that the landowners in the managed floodplain have to pay, and also what we would need to ask folks in the watershed area to pay. So trying to find ways to spread that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I'm not really looking to split it with people who are foolish enough to decide to locate their home or their business inside of a managed floodplain. I think the words they missed out on were floodplain. And I think also that when you, when you talk about the airport and the value of the number of people that it moves and the freight that it moves, what are our other international airports? Eugene, Redmond, so why isn't, that's the primary airport for the state. Even if you fly out of one of those airports, you often fly to the Portland airport to connect to somebody. So why isn't the rest of the state paying? And I'd also want to know if you're unique among special districts in that you don't have the billing or collection capacity, and was that just kind of a lack of forethought when we started this? Frankly, we wanted to be part of this because we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, have a fighting chance of avoiding it.
So many things there. We are not unique. Well, this district is unique. It's the only kind that exists. In terms of thinking about billing, we were aware of it. It was part of the planning and thinking. We obviously have a lot more work to do to figure out exactly how it would work out. I think we always knew that this was going to be one of the most complicated parts of setting up this new district. And it is unique. Most special districts operate on some portion of property taxes, property assessments, or something. Although you have an expert right here at the table who knows a lot about special districts and how they are funded. So I don't want to pretend to be an expert, but this is unique in terms of how special districts fund themselves.
And it's in the early stages. So as options come up and get presented to the board, I will bring that back to our council.
And that's another direction we'd like to see you go in, because right now the county is the bad guy. If you want to alleviate the county of that responsibility, then we need you to be the bad guy.
Mhm.
We're not going to go out and tell our residents that they have to pay this much on their water bill for a levy that doesn't protect their property. And so, we need, if we're forced to have a fund assessed, then it needs to besides us. That's,
Yeah. You are not the only folks we've heard that from.
One quick question. What's funding you now? You have 35 staff members. What's funding you?
Tax assessments.
Tax
So
assessments.
yeah, in the managed floodplain exclusively.
Okay, thank you.
And the challenge has been that those are just extremely insufficient.
Yeah.
And with a lot of this area being public land, we aren't really making anything off of those public lands. Plus you bring in compression and all the other fun stuff associated with Measure 5 and Measure 50. And we are seeing a future where we simply can't afford to even operate and maintain our system, let alone do the improvements to meet federal safety standards.
Thank you. We'll look forward to hearing the plan when you get it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
thanks.
Thank
Evan.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Evan.
All right. Next up is a public hearing, which we will open now with this announcement for resolution 16-2022, solid waste rate potential change.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council. While we're waiting for Councilor Minor to come back. You'd think I'd be better at Zoom by now, but.
Oh, you look good on that little pop-up that you always see.
All right, so yes, this is resolution 16-2022 for adjustments to solid waste rates with waste management. And it is we'll need to open the floor for public hearing. I don't think we'll get much, but since Jeff is here, he'll say you'll need to open the floor officially. So Waste Management is our solid waste provider in the city, and their franchise agreement enables a 10% rate of return, and that was just re-upped last year in 2021, and it is an 8-year contract, so it expires in March of 2029. Around that same time, Waste Management also did an increase, and at that time, Metro in implementing their, I think it's the 2030 or 2040 solid waste regional plan. There were a series of steps, improvements, investments, and that we knew that that would trickle into then solid waste rates. So last year, it was a very large increase, 16 some odd dollars per ton at the transfer station. And while Waste Management has a parallel system, and Mike is here from Waste Management, and he can answer some more specific questions if you have them about how that works in parallel. This again, starting July 1 of this year, Metro increased it another $8.30 a ton, both as part of fees, but then also part of just their operating costs, which we've seen what inflation's done with wages and fuel. So tipping fees aside and all the benefits that Metro's trying to do in reducing negative impacts from solid waste, they're just increase the cost of doing service. So Waste Management did a request for a rate adjustment to cover those additional costs and to help get closer to that 10% rate of return. They do send us their proprietary information every year showing what their rate of return is. In 2021 is just under 10. So it wasn't surprising that they're coming in for a slight adjustment. And like last year, it's not just a solid, like we do with water and sewer, X percent, whether it's 2, 3, 4, whatever percent that looks like. They do it kind of based on volume or the weight. And so you'll see the percent change in that middle column varies because, again, the larger the container, the more weight it is. So we have the lines on your left, and this was in your packet, whether it's the residential rate or the commercial, the service, and our 35 gallon is the most popular service. You can see it's just under $30 a month now, and it'll be just over $30 a month with the new rate. It was an increase of 65 cents. I believe the next most popular is the 64 gallon. And so again, just about a dollar more per month. You can see then the Gresham, the Troutdale, and then where they have a franchise in Portland, what those rates are. So we're very close to Troutdale. And my guess is we get that because of the economies of scale and efficiencies, and that our collection day is the same as Troutdale, at least on the residential side. If you want, I can have Mike pop up here for just a moment, explain things a little more from their perspective, have an opportunity for you to ask questions before we get into kind of the public hearing and next steps.
I just one question for you, Mike. Like Greg pointed out, it appears that you're asking for the increase just based on the weight, which we appreciate. But given the current economic climate, particularly around fuel, do you feel like that that 10% rate of return is in greater danger down the road and that we might be doing this yearly or something like that?
The one thing that I do know is that Metro over the next 5 years is anticipating rate from where it is now at like $123 and up to $164 that they're taking up. For us, we have to pay those taxes, and I believe within the rate right now, there's close. Anytime Metro raises those rates, that's really what drives some of the rate adjustment, passing on the fees. This year has really been a challenge because last year, the federal government had a credit where we got roughly about 50 cents for every gallon of CNG equivalents. And so we've got a significant amount of credits that help offset some of our fuel costs. And that tax went away, or that credit went away at the end of. That's one item that having to face this year. Plus, a shortage in quite a bit more than we've had in the past. We have a lot of we have union drivers and so I feel like we've done a really good job in keeping the cost down and providing a quality service. And I hope we can, if anything, if we're back before you again, is there anything, I mean, from your perspective, service been okay for you guys, or, this is the opportunity I like to hear. You guys are doing a great job, or is there anything that you guys are needing that we could potentially add services or?
I have a question that the 39, that's for both garbage and plus the yard debris.
And the recycling, yes.
Yeah. And then the little Kirby's. Yeah.
Glass container as well.
So that's for both containers and the Kirby,
Yes.
that 2% increase,
That's correct.
not per container. No.
Package deal, yes.
Hey, what about that? I know anytime, we are gone and, we forget to tell somebody to bring our garbage cans in or any of that stuff, or you guys miss picking it up because, something happens. We usually get it sorted out with your staff. But if, there's been a couple times and you made a return trip.
Yeah,
I mean,
willing to come back, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You worked into a couple other trips, I'm sure, but no, we certainly have been happy at our place.
I think about it sometimes is that, holidays and inclement weather that, we ought to, put together a calendar for our residents. I live in Tree Hill Park condominiums, and usually if your Wednesday is close to a holiday, we get picked up on Thursdays. But recently there's been times where we weren't picked up until the next Monday. Nice to know some consistency, based on holiday is on day before or day after your pickup date, actually be picked up. Because at Tree Hill, I get a ton of questions about it.
Echo that. Hard to know.
What we are supposed to be doing in automatic dial out. So if we know that paid, there's usually dial that to all if we have your record that there's a call made to every resident. We're not going to be able to make it out because of certainly improve upon that. Definitely work on that.
Tree Hill, we don't pay individual refuse rates. They're part of our homeowners dues. So if you're making a call there, it's probably just going to our board liaison and out to the residents.
That could be the case, yes.
Or maybe if they're known, pickup dates are known ahead of time, they could be, we communicate that with staff here and they could get into the newsletter and make.
Yeah, I actually called one time, the time that we were picked up on the Monday, and the person I talked with at customer service indicated that we'd be picked up on that Friday, but our rest of the weekend, which was, it's not a big deal. It's just, to know whether or not you should leave it at the curb or bring it back and take it back out on a particular date. Something we'd like to.
I think my comment would be, and I know this probably be a Metro thing more or less, but I think education, in various of languages, I think would be important. I think there's a lot of residents that, including myself, that aren't sure of what are things that we can recycle and what are things that should be thrown in the trash can. So I think, looking them at further education could be a great opportunity as well.
That's someplace where we can probably work with the city of Gresham too, because the education that we're required to do as a city, we push the money that we get for that them and partner with them to do the. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate your
Thanks.
coming up and answering questions. We do have the motion to consider on resolution
I'm
16.
not done
Oh,
yet.
you're not done yet. Wow.
When I did want to thank Mike for coming out because he did replace Dean Camphor, who after years of threatening to do so, actually did retire this past May. And you know, Wood Village Waste Management, they have a separate site just for Wood Village folks. That does help address some of the questions raised. But yes, we will certainly work with Mike and his team and kind of craft more optimal solutions, both for, you know, when in doubt, what do you throw out? You know, and then certainly there were some challenges with weather delays and holidays of which exact day things are going to be picked up. And, you know, some of that was related to, as said, you know, workforce shortages and just not having the capacity. But back to the issue at hand, this was advertised in the Outlook for the public hearing as well as our website per our city code. And if approved, it will be effective just in a couple of days, July 1. So last year we actually postponed it a month to make sure we actually put it in the newsletter last time. But understand that takes Waste Management recalculating the rates and actually increases a small increment because it's 11 months instead of 12. We decided to publish the notice in the Outlook as well as our website. So before you make your motion, you do need to have open the floor for any kind of public comment or testimony, and then suggested motion is there.
Open the floor for public testimony. Hearing no public testimony, we'll close the floor for public testimony. Consider a motion on the resolution.
I move to approve resolution 16-2022, setting new rates for solid waste and recycling services in Wood Village effective July 1, 2022.
I get enough seconds.
I'm going to second that one.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a quick question. What if the motion doesn't pass? Service?
Most likely because the franchise does guarantee a 10% rate of return, whether is then not adopted in one meeting. My guess is there could be some sort of action, whether it's then breach of service agreement or whatnot that would take effect, or a delayed rate increase making up for lost time. So the rate would actually be then effectively higher is what I think a presumption.
It was just a question, not that I'm saying it.
Yeah, we do have a franchise with Waste is a contract, and we are entitled to are obliged to make a decision. And I do recall, I can't remember. They were not satisfied. I don't even know if it was Waste Management. Oh, but they came out, they sat down, they talked to
And I can't say they did provide us the numbers and things. And really a lot of this stems from, was it 2018, 2017 when this recycling tanked? That's when you saw what used to be a marketable commodity was actually a liability. Causing then for rates to increase because there just wasn't a market for what had been a marketable product.
Thanks for the good question, Counselor. Appreciate it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. All right. And so next up is our city manager evaluation discussion. have on the dais, evaluation, done by Council President Nissen and done by myself, and you can identify those because of the, well, one, my signature's on one of them, but also the box on the front is not filled in. And Greg's self-evaluation, the box on the front is gray. Kind of give
I
you.
should give him points for coloring inside the lines on his evaluation.
That's right. And so what we have done in the past is that Councilor Nissen and I have both presented our reports. And then Greg has the opportunity to present his, and we'll go through questions and comments from the council. And then I think it mentioned in here that you're already at top of scale, and so what we can consider is COLA and a potential bonus.
Correct. And that's for those of you that are around when Bill Peterson was in that same situation. It was the COLA, and then, you know, it's called a merit bonus. So it doesn't increase the actual step range, but it's what we do for staff as well. It rewards work and effort without extending the range while providing a financial benefit.
And I know that that's something that we have to decide on in the open meeting, but do we necessarily have to decide on the merit bonus today, or could we do that in a separate?
I mean, it could be a separate meeting, but we're doing holistic staff evals kind of right now because we like to make them effective July 1. And so people then at the July payroll, which is the 21st, those adjustments get made, whether it's a step increase, merit bonus, but there's certainly, you can do that at the next July meeting if that's what you want to do.
Now, and well, I asked not because you're not necessarily deserving of a merit bonus, but I have to admit to having not considered a number yet as part of my evaluation. I don't know that Council President Nissen did either.
Yeah, this is a different form than our standard one. For the ones for staff, everything's broken down to a number, trying to make it as objective as possible. So whatever the number translates into a percent, whether it's a step increase or a bonus, there's no translation key with this.
And then forgive me for not remembering, but did we do a percentage of your salary as a bonus last year?
Oh, we did a step last year.
Step last year.
Was it just the 5%?
I believe so.
I think we did. It was the COLA plus, I think, 5%, which is a standard base step.
Yeah. All right, Council President Nissen, you want to go first?
Sure. We read the whole question and the answer, or just the answers? Everybody's got the questions in front of them.
I could read the question.
Yeah, you can read just the answer. That's fine.
For the annual performance plan, Greg works diligently with staff to ensure that all APP items that rely on Wood Village staff are completed in a timely fashion. The items not completed are due to personnel and agencies outside of Greg's control.
I get confused by two sides. I said that Greg's current circumstances led to the most thorough and thoughtful assessment of the APP and the inventory of staff capabilities than we have actually ever had. It's unfortunate, but that we should take this same sort of introspective look every year. I'm happy that the staff has adopted the council belief that some things on the APP might take more than a year. And I think that we are also allowing us to push in the direction of stopping, calling it the 80-20 rule in terms of capacity, and maybe looking at it more as a 90-10, particularly with the staffing changes that we've recently had and the struggles that we've found or that we've had to replace people.
Well, certainly as we've operationalized some of the things that have been on the APP for years and years, that's just what we do now. But yeah, more of a 90-ish 10. And do you want me to now read my comments after both of yours, and then we'll just,
Sure.
that's how we'll round robin.
Round robin it.
I mean, really, it's more of the same. I added a little touch about the the mission and, you know, vision and goals and trying to incorporate that into the daily workflow and culture here. And there were certainly delays in the APP of not just outside agency control, but within. And, you know, we're making progress of wrapping those up in the next month or so. But it certainly wasn't perfectly executed as the original timeline.
Oh, and I guess I should say that I ranked Greg as exceptionally satisfied on question number 1.
For question 2, with some encouragement and discussion, Greg has begun to report back to and work with council on items/requests that staff is unable to complete. I'd like to see continued improvement in this area, and that in a lot of ways ties back with the answers both of you gave for question 1, just with that APP and personal changes and changes in staffing and taking that step back and looking at creative ways of making things work. And we don't always have to have everything on the front burner, but sometimes pushing stuff off a little bit.
I wanted to say, you know, just again, how happy I am that City Hall was done, you know, under budget and pretty much on time. I think that you did a really good job in the preliminary negotiations of the potential land purchase, but that we made the right decision by breaking those negotiations off. I like that you have a regular tribal contact. You know, I would think more things that we could tell our citizens about their progress, but that's more on them obviously than it is on you. And I like the job that you're doing in your city manager meeting of steering the other city managers on some hot button issues where they might have made it harder for preemptive governments to work with us and partner with us. And I liked it, but at the same time, I like the fact that you're keeping the heat on those governments, particularly county roads and the joint office.
You know, and I put minor, you know, expectations seem to be met, you know. I know was expressed last year and before, you know, start taking more initiative and just go and do some things, keep you informed, but not, you don't always necessarily need to get all the details. So trying to been working that this year, and it seems to be progressing. Also looking at the council ideas and, you know, policy things that aren't necessarily maybe explicit, but like our partnership with Cultivate Initiatives while doing the right-of-way work and, you know, blending those two opportunities to create something larger than just, oh, we're going to mow rights of ways. Oh, we want to support workforce development. Was an example that I put in my eval is trying to find the, you know, do the written and unwritten portions as best as possible.
Number 3, I did not have the previous assessment to compare it to. However, Greg continues to grow in your job as a city manager.
I'll probably just let the council read the bulk of my answer here, but I think one of the places that we looked for growth was that you just kind of slow down a little bit, I think is what we talked about. And I think that you are being more intentional about identifying risk, dotting I's and, you know, crossing T's before you take action. And it's something that we called on from you, and I think you've done it.
And just another one, again, I kind of repeated the previous one because again, that was what was kind of stated at the last eval, but also lost my thought there. I apologize. Basically trying to speak up more in regional meetings and because when we have like one-on-ones, if, you know, Councilor President Nissen's in the, you know, fire user board, he and I will chat offline. It's like, well, why didn't you bring that up at the meeting? And so trying to be, you know, bring those things up at actual regional meetings in a way that's still a positive partner or inquisitive without being kind of the jerk or useful idiot in the room.
That's why we don't bring it up during those meetings. That's what I excel at. People management. The interactions I've observed are that Greg treats everyone, staff, volunteer, and citizens with the same very high level of care and respect. Even when faced with less than optimal interactions with the public, Greg keeps his cool and treats all persons with respect. He takes time to listen to their concerns and reply as necessary with a very appropriate response.
And I said that I believe that Greg's a servant leader, that staff satisfaction and retention are important to him, and that he uses good tools to measure the satisfaction, particularly the survey work that has been done and relayed to council. I said team building and benchmarking are always part of our APP. One thing, you and I have talked about it before. I said I know that our contracted DRC is good. However, I would like to see more progress on having that person in-house. And then I also said that I thought that our relationship with the Natural Leaders Group continues to blossom and strengthen. You and I talked about it after the last event that we got invited to and got to enjoy with them, that it feels like the trust is building and that we're not the authorities anymore as it once was. And then I just, and I know you're doing this, but please the part that got cut off is to please continue to acknowledge and nurture our partnership with Wood Village Baptist Church, and just enlist them anytime to help when we can. Maybe I'm glad we're having night out there still, and maybe the only disappointment about this building is it seemed to put a distance between us in terms of our partnership on events and things like that, because we're excited about having it here, and rightfully so, but sometimes that means we're not having it there anymore. That's a little bit of a disappointment for them.
Yeah, I echoed a lot of the same things, certainly, as I'm not going to say we're out of the woods on COVID by any means, but we've normalized some COVID things. And as we're able to bring back in-person things and make connections, we've been trying to do that. And again, the natural leaders and building relationships there, whether it's through, our events, the COVID vaccine clinics, certainly our tiny home brought opportunities to connect with people that normally we didn't talk with, and had a chance to listen to the deeper concerns they had and try to, serve the community better. So I echoed a lot of the same things. And again, hopefully as COVID hopefully doesn't get any worse, and then as workforce development steadies, business community members will have more opportunities to meet with me, and we can understand some of their thoughts, concerns, issues, and wants as well. That's been a harder one, just because they don't have the time to take an hour to meet with me. They're trying to run their business with half staff capacity or otherwise. So do that when we can, but be something again to build towards.
Mary, I know our contracted DRC is good.
The direct responsible charge for our water
Distribution.
distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
There needs to be a qualified personnel that's available on call if there were to be issues. And
Okay.
we made that, what, a year and a half ago, that
Yeah.
contract?
Yeah.
I mean, immensely capable, qualified professional. Used to actually just be the next door into Fairview, but actually relocated out
Okay.
of state, but we still retain the contract with the parent organization. And while that person's not physically here, the organization does have people physically
Local
here that
contacts.
can come
Okay,
out
all right.
if that's needed, but our day-to-day, because of the knowledge of the system, is still with this individual.
Got it.
So, again, I can't say enough good things about the professionalism.
But we would like to see somebody in-house. Has that been the discussion?
It
I mean,
would be
long
nice.
term,
Yeah,
it would be
long-term.
nice to have that ability.
Okay.
This is a great short-term opportunity to both educate our crew and keep us compliance with state law.
Okay, I just needed that, and I was hoping I wasn't just hitting a brain freeze here, and this was going to be real obvious to everybody.
Yeah, it's a Oregon Health Authority regulation that we have to.
I can tell everybody else knew it. I didn't want to be people started looking at. Everybody knows that.
See, the Democratic.
That's number 5. Program and process management. Greg is able to keep things flowing and moving, even with changes in staffing This includes jumping in and completing tasks that others cannot get to. Greg has also begun to review with some potential reorganization of staff duties to allow for personal growth and better utilization of staff members.
And I said that Greg did a great job of shepherding the small wins group. And then also working with James, who was our Hatfield Fellow, on how to better turn out quality work and make better presentations. I think that you helped him a lot. And that's proves that Hatfield Fellowship works two ways. Benefits both our city because we get some extra work done, and it helps the fellow as well. I think that the rest of this kind of ties in also to my answer to number 6, but talked about APP for the master plans, or I'm sorry, so the APP for the master plans came at the right time. The park and play fields are looking good and getting more organized use. And Greg is a staff leader on 2 of the boards that I used to serve on, Play East and Main Streets on Halsey. Adds, cogent remarks to the discussion, and if things seem to be getting a little bit off track, has been good at bringing people back to the point.
Again, I echoed a lot of the same things, and it's kind of a double-edged piece when I can jump in and do things versus is that the highest and best use of my time, and how to encourage, coach, and mentor, others to complete those things. And that's, I think, collectively what we're striving for is setting up the system, whereas people are here for a while and, they get both the knowledge, but then the want to just take the initiative and either solve problems, serve the community, whatever the need is, without having, whether it's me jumping in or anyone else at the table jumping in to answer the question or to fix a problem. Coupled with, when you look at how long our team's been here, a lot of them it's 3 years or less. So it's easy to forget, why aren't they taking more initiative? Well, they haven't experienced that yet. Been here 14 years. I know I have not seen it all. Jeff's seen it all. But I think, again, looking at the next step, it's really creating that environment where people take the initiative within a framework. And that's what we're trying to build.
For 6, fiscal management, Greg's able to answer most any question that is posed to him. When the question is outside of his purview, he is readily able to get it. When the potential back charge issues arose with Multnomah County roads for the 2/8 work, Greg was able to leverage city identified projects to accomplish goals of both city and county.
Fiscal management, kind of where I started was Rescue Act funds. Some praise in that I think that we had really good guidance from you and the finance team on how to extend the utility relief program. And I know that those dollars are running out. In fact, we've announced the end of it, I think, but I did sign a few more checks today. And then I think this is probably tied to we need to know what the new master plans are going to tell us to do. But I think that there should be just some more information about remaining Rescue Act funds and what we might be thinking about doing with them. My answer was more pressure on council to adopt some Rescue Act fund sort of activities. It's one of the places where I graded somewhat satisfied. And you've explained everything well, and so has Seth, and it would be easy to let you off the hook, but it just seems like in the past couple of years, there's been a little bit more budget squishiness than we've had in the past, and more supplemental action than we've had in the past. And so I don't know that it's because we have less of a handle on things. The atmosphere around the budget just feels a little bit different.
In the answer, certainly taking that and not trying to be combative to the feedback, certainly it's very important. The past couple of years, when we budget tight the way we do with little contingencies, we're not just tying up money where it can otherwise be of benefit, and you get a main break or a sewer overflow. we haven't, that much room, for the unknowns versus, an event that causes that much. We've had those the past couple years, and to the point of master plans and rescue act funds, I think that's the right move, is seeing what comes out of that for what's going to give the biggest value for those dollars, whether it's using them as part of the SCADA upgrades that are in progress now, or whether it's maybe we need to upsize the facility or do some other targeted improvements. What's going to, looking at what's not SDC eligible, what would cause, rate increases that we can subvert or not do because we've got these other federal dollars to improve this. Something we've all talked about. And, agreeing with the whole point on the budget piece, I do rely heavily on, Seth, Becky, and, that team of where's the money going to come from? But I think, I am pleased overall of how we invest our dollars and, the accountability measures in place that both have the efficiency side that people don't need to spend 3 hours getting quotes for, something that's a couple $100 and you lost the time value to the money versus the accountability of we're not just buying things willy-nilly and actually taking a hard look at, is that an investment? Is it a need, or is it just a want? That'd be a shiny, fun thing to have.
Sure.
But certainly worth the comment and worth noting for, future discussions with budget committee with you all of here's how it's been the past couple of years. Here's been the outcomes of that. And is that something you still wish to pursue, or, do you want it done a little differently? And certainly very willing to have those conversations, especially as we're exploring how we're continuously looking at overhauling the budget for both, just efficiency and effectiveness. It's understandability and connection back to, outcomes that we want.
And I think the last 2 years, if I could speak to, having staff turnover, having new sets of eyes on our infrastructure, identifying deficiencies and wanting to take our system, whether it's our wastewater collections, our water distribution, our streets, parks, take it to that next level. And I think that's what we're looking at, is to that next level of it.
I got to say something here too. The supplemental budgets, they don't bother me a lot. They bother me when it's been poorly budgeted, when we have not done the homework to really look at the budget and what we are anticipating. That's when they start to bother me. But the tool, I don't disagree with using supplemental budget as a tool to respond to maybe the council's position or change in position, or of course emergencies. I certainly don't disagree with that, and I know, Mayor, you don't either.
No.
But that's when a supplemental budgeting would start to bother me. If we're starting to see routinely
Habitual
operational costs that first, haven't been carefully budgeted, that's when I would be more concerned about a supplemental budget.
That's coming out through, and we just went through a pandemic also. Understanding some funds we weren't too sure of, and some funds, hard to predict. So that overall, I think it's a pretty good tool.
Question 7, operations management. Greg has taken the strengths and interests of staff and used those to the benefit of Wood Village. These may not be the areas that personnel were hired for, but that they have an interest in, and allowed that staff member to pursue it to complete a project that helps the city. Greg has also taken a hold of opportunities that have risen and used them for the benefit of the city. An example is the difficulty of attracting and retaining groundskeepers, which led to the trial service and utilization of an outside contractor to provide the needed service and was able to realize the cost savings for the city.
And even though it seemed as though I was critical of them in the last answer, my answer on this one starts with that Greg has a great team in John and Seth. He promotes their skills, gets their best work. I particularly want to thank you and anybody that had impact on Erica, because, you know, her growth from never having been a permit tech to being the permit tech of the year for the state of Oregon is just awesome. I think that the recommended changes that we have made to the personnel code in the past couple of years have been spot on. I did say that there's, you know, been some well and water issues, but those are more due to age, and that the response has been sufficient.
Yeah, and in mind, you know, one of the things I wanted to do when I became manager was look at our foundational components, whether it's, you know, gaps in policies or some of the laws and things. And now we're you know, we got our new home here. That was nice to fix. That helped with a lot of issues we were having, you know, meeting space or just teamwork and things. But now looking at, you know, revisiting our master plans, you know, looking at our operations building, our SCADA system, some of those things have been talked about for a long time, and now having the time and investment to actually get them done, I think helps in the long run. So whether Seth, John, Becky, myself are here, whether, you know, it mix and matches on the council, we know that whoever's in whatever seat, there are some foundational components that can carry the next set of people too.
Number 8, council/city manager relationship. Greg does a great job communicating with council, even when the news that he has to present is not good.
I do that often, it seems like.
Habit you need to break.
Yeah. I said, you know, Greg's honest with the council about ongoing county ODOT and urban flood water quality safety district issues. I admire his candor.
You know, I kind of remarked, we spent a good deal of time at the retreat this past time talking about, you know, council meetings, council communication. I think that certainly helps get you information that you need to know in a timely manner. And so that seems to be working, as well as I'll call it the kind of every other week council only weekly update that talks a little bit more about agendas or kind of behind the scenes of issues. And hopefully that's been working for you. I know it's not every week, but some weeks the soup's still cooking. So I didn't want to just repeat the same information, which, I mean, if there's new things, it's new. If there's not, I tend not to send something.
Number 9, external liaisons and public image. Greg is a go-to for many entities in Multnomah County and the surrounding cities. I certainly appreciate that kind of driving things from our seat.
So the same thing to start, I said, we're leaders when other boards or commissions in the area need advice about our region. I think that of the 3 cities, we by far have the best relationship with the MCSO. I think that Greg is going to be the more cogent and calm voice in the ongoing fire service saga. I think that we got really good service from Gresham on inspections, and Erica did a really good job of maintaining that and growing that partnership. And, you know, we've had our staff from Representative Hudson's office come and talk to us, and Representative Hudson come and talk to us, and now Senator Gorsuch come and talk to us. And I think that some of that is Greg's effort to build our legislative relationships and to take them sort of, you know, more on behalf of Wood Village and things that we would like to see them get done.
You know, echoing something earlier, I don't know if people see me as a useful idiot sometimes or just the idiot in the room. I don't know, but I will say I admire and appreciate your all's direction of me. Is it makes it easy to craft and create relationships, because that's what you said to go do. You know, I hear from others where councils and electeds take a very hard line, and it's, you know, thou shalt do X, kind of regardless of the damage that may be left behind, whether as your direction is we're building something for the long term. And that's, you know, it takes the relationship building, not to say that there aren't difficult conversations and things that need to be said And there's also a way that they can be said in a positive way or outside larger regional meetings with the one-on-ones. So I actually appreciate your all's direction of want to be seen as regional partners, not the most aggressive city.
Number 10, I had no comment.
I just said that, I reiterated that on fire, you're very thoughtful. That, the water main and well issues, there's been speedy action, and the new master plan should indicate the work that can be done to avoid surprises. I like the fact that you push the Main Streets Board, the extra meetings that you've had with other staff members and with the branding company, to actually, be work and accomplish things on the behalf of our city and not just have in our region and not just have meetings. I feel bad making this criticism because I didn't bring a lot of solutions. But I think we do need to investigate how to make our recruiting more robust. And if we're using 3 job boards, 10 job boards, if we're not direct soliciting people in other cities that we know and have personal relationships that could be good for our city.
We try to poach all the time.
Then maybe we should. It's anything, even the smallest thing that makes us think that we might be able to increase the size of the pool. I think we should be trying.
And we do explore that on we're so small that every position is a very unique component. And the pool in which you can swim in varies. So for example, we've got one opening for our new OA1, and it's only been open for not even a week, and we've got healthy numbers. I don't know the quality yet, because we always wait till the people who review the applications wait till the end, because we actually scrub names, identifiers. So we're just trying to look at skills, abilities, qualifications without actually how to identify what their race may be. Any of those things. It's just looking at the data. But what I've been told is it's looking good, and it's only been, a few days. So lower level, entry level things, we tend to get stronger versus the higher level. It does take a more concerted, targeted approach. We've been very lucky over the past 5 or so years, John, Seth, all the positives you said about me this evening is because of the work of that team. And, I'm not going to say I don't have a hand to play in, cultivating, getting letting them be their best selves and letting them do the work for which they were hired and what we said they could do. So, other expectations, I kind of put down a couple examples, as mentioned, the potential property purchase that kind of came up, and I agree. We ended at the right solution. I don't think I'd want to be holding on that land right now with the way things are going. And certainly I think the community's response to tiny homes was not anything as anticipated, but was certainly an opportunity to, again, connect with people we don't typically hear from, and let them know there is a line of communication at any time here at City Hall.
Number 11, other things to consider. I had no additional comment.
And I think the things that I put on there are less to evaluate Greg and more just to tell the people that might be watching or the team that surrounds us how I look at Greg. And I said that Greg is brave when he needs to be and measured when he needs to be. And I know that when advised by other or former city managers to stay in his lane, Greg looks for ways to responsibly widen the road or break up the yellow line so he can safely make a pass. And I really appreciate that about that's a really good direction to stretch us in my mind.
Well, and again, you all collectively make it easy because the direction is do good for the community in a way that builds up the community versus other governing boards are different. I'm not going to pass judgment, good, bad, or better. Your direction makes it easy to do good work for the people and build relationships. and take calculated, risk.
Just on the summary, I said that I was satisfied. Suggestions for professional development is just to continue to look for ways to present publicly, like at conferences. I know you were signed up for one, and then they, I think they got wind of that bravery and candor, and maybe decided to go a different way. To my chagrin, I know yours, and
I'm
They
actually
lack
trying to set up a meeting next month with that organization to constructively air where I see there can be improvements, because it's been too long of the same old. And if it's your professional development, you got to think beyond the box and actually dive into the deep end and be uncomfortable if you ever expect things to change or to grow or to think differently.
What professional development? are we talking about?
OCCMA, so Oregon City Managers Association.
Oh, okay.
It's a division of the League of Oregon Cities, which I also tend to have some issues with, where it's too much comfort in the status quo is not comfortable for me. I think a lot of entities, whether public or not, can get away with status quo because we hold a monopoly on whatever service we're providing or whatever governing we're granted. And I don't think that's an excuse for mediocrity. And that makes people uncomfortable. It can make people uncomfortable.
And then in other comments, I just said, keep pushing on changing the traditional fire service model to a more modern model that might, I didn't write it on here, but I think that, you and I have had discussions about that, how that might better impact, the quality of response that people get for the character of calls that we have in our city. And then also just the cost of facilities and equipment going forward. And I think that that's something to continue to talk about when we enter in, either for a new contract with Gresham or potentially a new fire service delivery method.
And I know Council President Nissen and I've had those conversations, around what they do in Tualatin Valley Fire District in terms of kind of medical response that for this region was, brand new and a bit maybe scary, unusual, versus you've got was it still FJ Cruisers you use for that? And just there are things to do to tweak around the margins that could make big impacts both on service and on cost affordability long-term.
What was the COLA that we used?
4%.
4%. Okay. So definitely the 4% cost of living.
I'd like to just say, Mayor, if I can make a comment.
Absolutely.
About the evaluation, just on two places that are reinforcements is, first off, when we had discussion about the purchase of the property, what I saw as a real positive is that we were looking at it. We were considering it. We were thinking about how if that property were purchased and if we were able to put some affordable or subsidized housing, that would be a great win for our residents. And we weren't afraid to talk about it, and we weren't afraid to go ahead and take a shot at something big for our city. And we didn't do it. We didn't do it for the right reasons, but we talked about it. You went out. We gave you direction to go out there and see if this thing is even plausible. It wasn't, and we quit. So that was, but I liked the idea that things that might be, as the mayor has said, outside of the box. And the other thing I just want to comment on, and we have, and I have earlier, one of the observations that was real important to me is our tiny homes conversation. All right, that thing kind of blew up. And the real test of leadership in my mind, and the real qualities of leadership come through when things don't go right, when there's surprises, when there's things that you get, you have to lead. And you didn't necessarily cause them. It's always a combination of things. But to me, those are the real indicators of leadership, composure, and grace when you're coming under fire. So those would be just the two other additional comments I would make on this.
Councilor Rios Campos?
I appreciate just, the service that you keep pushing staff to have, that we provide our residents, but I think component that was mentioned was the partner relationship. The way you guys have embraced a community group, the way you guys have, I think really speaks volumes. And so in that also becomes difficult steps and uncomfortable situations. So maybe other partners that have been traditional partners of the city, might feel isolated or forgotten a little bit. But I think it's the importance of those residents that live on that's been created. I think as a city, there's always been kind of this mistrust or not trust within, and now that's kind of slowly gone away because of your ability to kind of step outside your comfort zone. And I really appreciate that.
Councilor Mann? Okay. All right, then, as Greg mentioned, in addition to the cost of living increase that we gave him last year, we also gave him a 5% bonus. I'd entertain comment on any number, or if people think that 5's fine, I'd also entertain a motion.
A couple of questions for me. COLA that the staff has received this year is what was it?
4%.
4%. Okay. So that would go to across the board. In my mind, I think that's first thing I would say. So, and then the second was a 5% increase last year, and that was just because that's the ladder. That's the
Yeah, that's
the column you're on.
typical step.
Okay.
So for everyone, not me, it actually is a range. So if you're in your step progression and you meet all your goals, objectives and everything, it's 5%. If you exceed those, it can go anywhere up to, I don't think we've ever done more than 7. I think mostly it's 6.5. I think it's typical for a step progression. I believe the merit bonus tops out at 5. And averages between 3 and 5%, I think is generally where those tend to land. I'm kind of looking at Seth and Becky, who I remember better than I.
Yeah. So you don't have another step right now.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
basically with the COLA the way it is, there's not a range per se for a city manager in our wage scale, but if you look at the last unmarked step, I think is range 30. That's kind of the unofficial city manager range, and the 4% essentially puts it at that.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
I mean, maybe others do here. Range here, what staff and the COLA, I couldn't remember what.
Yeah, 4% is what we did for everybody.
Well, if it would make it easier, it's not totally against the rules, I would move that we give Greg a 5% merit bonus.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Mayor, the thing, now that we've done that, and maybe you've done this, you and Greg have done it in the past, but I'd like to see just comparative salaries with city managers.
Sure.
To make sure that we're one. I'm not worried about being a little higher. I want to make sure we're not lower. I want to be in the top. At least.
We'll add that to the comp analysis that's on the APP for this year. And I do believe, but I wasn't part of it, when Prothman did the recruitment, they kind of did a spot check. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can tell you also in the past that um, the way Greg interviewed was actually sort of a pleasant surprise and a happy surprise, given the pool that we had. What we actually envisioned every time we did Bill Peterson's review and gave Bill Peterson, you know, the maximum amount of money that we were allowed to give him, or so it seemed. We were thinking that we wanted to catch that sort of high functioning but end of career professional, you know, somebody that that, you know, had a notable career and wanted to end it on a sort of a high note with a small city. Instead, we got somebody that, you know,
Yeah, instead you got me.
we should be giving these raises and bonuses to, because we want to keep him not for his last 4 or 5 years, but for the next 25 or 30
Yeah.
years.
So did we win or no, I'm just kidding.
And also, what I would say is that Council President Nissen is sort of, you know, borne the responsibility of taking part in the evaluation because he's the council president. And so, you know, I when Mayor Clark was the mayor, I was the council president. And so I've been working on the city manager's evaluation for a number of years. In fact, it was Mark Clark and Tim Clark before it came Scott Harden and Tim Clark. And so Scott Harden's been on for a long time. And so, you know, I don't think there's anything in statute that says it has to be mayor and council president.
You don't even have to do an eval.
And so if anybody, you know, wants to play a larger role or be somebody that evaluates Greg for the next year, you could always, you know, tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, I'd like to give this a shot.
You know, I'm not lobbying for that. I do, but just my question there was, I just want to make sure we're staying competitive, but with comparables and comparables is a
Broad term.
It's a very broad term, and I see comparables as more than just you know, similar size.
So our all staff comp analysis is the Public Employees Collective Bargaining Act says you have to take the 5 up and 5 down in population from your city. We actually do 10 up and 10 down. So we hope to get 5 that respond up and down. But then we also add in our regional folks where it makes sense. You know, certainly Fairview, Trout will have some similar positions. It gets a little trickier as you look at Gresham and Portland. We don't even touch that. But you try to bring in regional components as you can, because, you know, a city was Lakeside, what we learned about today.
Lakeside on the coast.
That's going to be, you know, they may be in population of a few thousand. It's a different environment over there versus in the Portland.
And what
metro.
Prothman found was that we were on the higher end when you looked at similar sized cities, and we were on we looked at regional comparators.
Which is probably about a decent sweet spot to be in, really.
That sounds about right.
Well, and
My
I
only
think
question was like on the eval portion is, how was it decided to only have 2 council members do it?
Because at the time they would meet in person and have 1 eval, and if you had 3, that'd be a quorum, and so you couldn't meet.
I do have a question about that, and I was thinking about it when I came here. You know, I got to see this when we got here, so and I read it, and you know, and that's fine. But back to this question, would it be possible? And I was kind of saving this for the retreat, but on the eval, I think it's appropriate that 2 people put it together. But it might also be helpful if the 5 members of the council got these questions, made comments, they go to the 2, and then you digest it. And at least you've collected thoughts, but leave it up to 2 people to put that together and have the responsibility to do that. So I would like to have a chance to just, I'd like to I made some comments here tonight, but I would like to give them to, if it's going to be the mayor and the president council, then that's great with me. If we could, but, we can talk about that.
I think that's-
Later.
That's a great retreat topic, probably one
Yeah.
that wouldn't take too terribly long. And with the prospects of potentially three, new counselors on the board, it would make sense of how they want to evaluate the performance of the city manager.
Well, and I think it helps council to see the evaluation as they're also becoming council members, as you work yourself into the seat. So
Well, certainly humbling to have, the COLA, the merit. I'm very just happy to serve this community and very satisfied that you're satisfied with my performance. And again, thank you for the merit bonus and just for your support and guidance.
Thank you, Greg.
And just for the record, I wanted to clarify that the intent.
I'd take that friendly amendment. Let's add the July 1 to my motion.
2022.
All right. Thank you for that, Jeff. And thank you, Greg. So Seth was able to do the finance director's report at the beginning of the meeting. So we'll move, well, actually it would have been second anyway. I'm sorry, John. We'll have the public works director's report. But thanks again, Seth, for
No problem. It
keeping
was-
us moving along.
I'm not used to going first.
The dead air. Suffering.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. I know it's after 8 o'clock. Eyes are kind of glazing over a little bit. So just to let you know, we went through our first heat wave this year. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the rain stopped and heats came in. So our system did good. So I really think a reoccurring theme here over the last 12 months. In this year's budget was approved, council approved 2 cases, which is 54 radio reads, which we ordered August 2021. They finally came in. So again, that's just one layer of it. The ceiling for well 3, we've been talking about it for 4 or 5 months now, getting repaired, the mold mitigation. Sheetrock was just completed last week. So again, another layer of dealing with a contractor, dealing with vendors, dealing with materials, the delays that our staff has been working with. So this is just a real quick overview of some of the main things we did this month. Again, water flushing, and we should get a better direction next year from Keller with the water master plan. And in that part of the scope was directional flushing, which should help on our water quality. Permits down a little bit, but I mean, still construction is happening. Jersey Mike's is moving along. They had some plumbing issues today. So the inspector is working with them and working with the contractor to make those corrections. They've done a lot of tile work there. It's looking good on the interior. They just need to work on their building part of it. So that's moving along.
I got to tell you just a quick funny story. I think about Jersey Mike's. I thought, been talking about it, and I drive by there and I see the sign and everything else. We're doing some work around the house. And we got 4 or 5 people there. Grandkids and my brother. And so I said, hey, Jan, go up and get us some sandwiches at Jersey Mike's. So she gets all the orders from everybody and off she goes up to Jersey Mike's to get sandwiches. And then she calls me and says, it isn't open.
Not open.
Yeah. Yeah.
So staff heard council's proposal or guidance on focusing more proactive approach on code enforcement. So Public Works is having a more proactive approach. I want to thank Jeff for providing Greg's response to some of our code enforcement communications with violators. So thank you for that. We'll be talking soon. So again, code enforcement, we're being little more proactive on that and heard council's request on that. Water production, we're up there 15 million. We're right on course. Water consumption, our system loss is about 11%. We will be working on a minor leak that we have on Holiday Place. That'll be taken care of after the 4th of July. Again, a materials issue with the contractor. And now we are monitoring water usage at the park restrooms. So we just installed a new 2-inch meter there. So any questions, Mayor, Counselor?
Questions? Thanks, John.
Nothing here. Glad to hear the code
Thank you.
enforcement work.
I just want to say that I appreciate Public Works working quickly on the water at the restrooms here at the park. We had to use them for Monday, up and running, so.
All right, city managers report with Greg.
Be interesting to see consumption off the splash pad over the summer months. That thing is a well-used investment.
Good.
It's great seeing the kids and families coming to the park. Some, they bring a dinner or their lunch. Parents are sitting on the benches, kids are just playing. I mean, it's great.
You can't see it from your seats, but I can see it.
I can see it. Yeah, it's being
Still
used.
going.
And that'll be part of the July director's report is consumption on that.
That'll be in the supplemental budget.
Just a couple quick notes. We talked a little bit of IPP, last meeting and then in my eval, but a couple of things that have slipped. The municipal code update. We want to bring that for adoption, second meeting in July, if we can wrap up all the final little pieces with that. So we are bringing that back to the forefront to wrap that piece up. Another thing, that kind of didn't end the way we wanted to with the APP, certainly tree planting. There was a lot of initiatives, a lot of contacts, mostly with the county and trying to add street trees and that. And, you all aware of how those conversations went and why we can't have trees where we want them. But that certainly won't stop us from looking at other opportunities to do more than just grass along our rights of ways and, help improve, reduce maintenance and just help improve the miniature ecosystem we have here. Also, we just want to touch on the night out. That will be July 15th. So we're working best we can. Supply shortages aren't just in pipes and, trucks that may or may not be ordered yet. I mean, we put the order in a year ago, but, foodstuffs are also challenging. It used to be we just call up, Fred Meyer, and not only do they, have it, they donated it. Well, we can't even, it's a struggle getting quantities we needed. Just want to assure everyone we will get enough food to feed all of our guests at the night out. And I'll be sending out an email regarding, parade instructions. After the 4th of July holiday, I didn't want to send it before and then get lost in the fun and festivities of the 4th of July. But the parade, 4:45 at the town center, and there'll be a map of where to actually meet there, or you can actually meet probably here and we'll drive you over there, back of a pickup truck. To the Baptist church where you can enjoy the event, and just quick a raise of hands, who's available and then interested in being in the parade. So I know how many vehicles to get and with drivers.
So we're missing 2 city shirts.
Shirts or vests?
Shirts
So
and vest.
which shirts?
I don't have a shirt either.
Yeah, when do we?
Yeah,
get
so
the
we're-
shirts?
The heck.
I got a shirt. You could probably both share it.
I got. Doc, if you want shirts tonight, I can get you shirts.
We're going the shirts. Is that-
Shirts and vest.
Yeah,
Vests,
me too. I want one too.
Great. After the meeting,
One
we'll,
of those shirts, one of those shirts.
but back onto the
The
parade.
availability.
Yes,
Is it
Perhaps.
perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll plan for all 5, and so I'll send instructions to all 5.
if we have shirts.
You'll,
No shirt, no minor.
No shirt, no shoes.
Gas.
a lot of places you can go with that, and I'm go anywhere.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, and I'll send out more details with that, but we'll have a nice turnout in the vendor area, not as big as the past years, mostly due to, again, staffing shortages, but good activities for kids, good activities with the sheriff's office and fire department, a DJ. So we'll have a nice array of music and then again, the full array of foodstuffs. So should be a nice event and the Outlook's actually going to have an article in it this Friday. So thanks to Councilor Rose Campos for that connection. Angel at the Outlook.
Oh, yeah, the education reporter.
Oh, yeah.
That's what-
Well, he said he heard it from you and so
Yep,
thank you.
Way to go.
awesome. All right. Jeff, do you have a city attorney's report?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right then. I will just say that last night was my last Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission meeting. I understand that there's a plaque and some gift certificates headed my way, so, you know, maybe we'll all go out to dinner or something.
No, that's great. Well, you've served there for how long?
Since 2012, 10 years.
Holy mackerel.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
We started the summer lunch program, 2 days. Go all the way until August 12th. So far, it's been a great turnout and then we'll continue to do for,
Awesome.
Where do you serve that? At the church? or-
no, right here.
We're doing it right here.
So we support the church site, but we have our own site here, right outside the restrooms. That's why
Okay,
it's great that the water was running because that's one of the
that is for sure.
requirements we need to have. And, you know, the splash pad actually does attract families that come. And so we provide them a nice little free meal and they really enjoy it.
All right, then we're adjourned.